Let's talk some chess. This game was played in 1890 in Houston. The player with the white pieces has the last name Reinisch, and the player with the black pieces has the last name Traxler. And that is an important piece of information because we're going to be talking about the Traxler counterattack, which is a really exciting sort of combo, and we'll see when we get to it. But first we have e4, e5 by black, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, and knight to f6. And this is, you've probably seen this many times in your games. This is a very common opening. The next move is equally common. It is knight to g5, the chicken liver or fried liver attack, as it's commonly called. The idea here is you're combining forces with your bishop and knight on f7. Obviously, it's not very fun if the bishop gets here for black. This comes with check. It's not very fun if the knight gets here either because it's forking the queen and the rook. The most common way to deal with this is by playing d5. This obviously attacks the bishop, and the pawn is defended by the knight and the queen. Here, you can play e takes on d5 with white, but now you sort of get this knight to a5 threatening the bishop, and maybe after bishop, or I think this is the bishop to b5. Now you can block with your own bishop, and the game sort of continues as normal. So that's sort of the most usual way to defend this sort of attack. But sometimes, as they say, the best defense is a great attack. I guess that's exactly what Traxler thought, because this is the key move in the Traxler counterattack. It is bishop to c5. And this is a really gutsy move because it completely ignores the threat on f7. It's allowing white to take advantage of this double attack on f7. But the idea is saying, okay, if you're going to attack my f-pawn, I'm going to attack your weak f-pawn on f2. And we'll see where that gets us in the end. So the proper move here is just to go ahead and calmly play bishop takes on f7. This comes with check. And now black is forced to deal with this check before getting any sort of counter action. But instead here, white puts the knight on f7. You know, obviously the knight is in a good position. It's now attacking the queen and the rook. But now black can jump into it with the sort of main idea behind the Traxler, which is bishop takes on f2 with check. And here, white made a really questionable decision. Didn't take the bishop on f2. I guess white was scared of this knight takes on e4 with check, but instead white runs into a really similar problem, basically plays king to e2, and you get the same idea, just knight to d4 with check, and now there's an extra bishop on the board. So I'm not really sure behind that reasoning, but in any case, you can see wherever you move your king, you're going to get one of these knights coming into the game and checking the king and causing more havoc. So anyways, we get king to e2 and now knight to d4 check. And here white still doesn't take the bishop, and this again, this is now a worse position for white because you have this knight on d4. But you can definitely take the bishop. Bishop after king takes on f2, you get knight to e4, and this obviously is a worse position than before because of this extra knight. But this is still better than what happened. And what happened was white continued to refuse to take the bishop and played king to d3. Walking the king even further up the board and far away from the defense or the support of its pieces. And here it is kind of difficult to find a move that continues the attack with the black pieces. For one thing, your queen is under attack by this knight, so maybe it makes the most sense, or I probably would play in this position queen to e7, sort of getting the queen out of harm's way. But here Traxler continued to attack, continued to move forward, and played b5. Attacking this bishop, and the pawn is defended by the knight, so it can't necessarily be taken. But here it's like black is giving up a queen. So let's see what happens if white accepts the queen sacrifice. If knight takes on d8, then you get this pawn takes bishop on c4. Really no choice but to take on c4, and now you get bishop to a6 and with check, and this doesn't look very fun. You have the bishop zooming this way, the other bishop zooming this way, the knight is also attacking. But at least you're up a queen. So this is definitely better for black, but at least white has sort of won a queen. So that's just one of the lines that we could see. Instead, white actually decides not to go into this and tries to keep the bishop on b3, because this is a very powerful bishop, and it is a useful defensive piece around the king. Really the only defensive piece at the moment. But here, Traxler is really intent on, really making it an aggressive Traxler counterattack, and just insists on giving up the queen. And here plays knight to e4. Knight takes pawn on e4. And the idea behind this is that you can't take the queen, and that's actually exactly what white does. White says, fine, none of my pieces are under attack. I'm just going to take the queen off the board. But now there's actually a checkmate in 9 moves, a forced checkmate in 9 moves. So see, you can find the first move in this awesome combination. We'll go with the first 2 moves. So you can find the first 2 moves in this combination while I give you a moment. Okay, the first move, unsurprisingly, is a knight check. There's an idea behind putting your knight on e4. I should mention, too, that, it might make sense here. You put the knight on e4. This is a sacrifice, so, you could always play king to e4, but then you're going to get this d5 check. The pawn is protected by the queen. King retreats, bishop to f5, and you can just see the force of the Traxler counterattack just zooming in on the king. King to c3, knight to e2, and this is going to end very badly for white. So you can't take long story short, you can't take the knight on e4, and again, instead, white took the queen. This is going to be equally as dire. The first move that I mentioned is this knight to c5. This obviously comes with check, and the king does not have many squares to go to. It has, in fact, just one, c3. But now this is the move that's a little bit harder to find, so that's why I asked you to find 2 moves, and the proper move here to continue the attack, it's not clear. The proper move to continue the attack is knight to e2 check. And it's not clear that this is a good move because it just gives away a knight on e2. The king has only 1 square to go to, but instead white just says, I'm going to take the knight with the queen on e2, and now get my queen in a defensive position. And it's not clear what you've gained here with the black pieces. But what you've gained is this clearance. So this is a clearance sacrifice. You're moving the knight from the d4 square, and you're allowing the bishop to come to d4 with check. So really cool, giving up a knight, getting the queen in a better position, but it's all worth it because of this check on d4. And again, all of these squares are taken away. The pawn takes away c4, the knight takes away d3, the bishop can't be taken, so the king is forced up the board to b4. But now you get the king being forced even further. You get a5. Obviously, this pawn is protected by the rook. And again, the king really doesn't have many choices. You could sort of, I guess, retreat, but I forget why, but this doesn't work. I mean, if you retreat, this certainly looks pretty good. That might be, sorry. If you retreat, if you retreat to a5, then you get the immediate checkmate with b4. The pawn is checking the king, and the knight is protecting a4, so that doesn't work. So instead, the king has to march up even further and take the pawn on b5. But now you get the final piece developing with check, and that is bishop to a6. The bishop is protected twice by the knight and the rook, obviously checking the king, and again, the king has no choice but to take the pawn on a5. And now, of course, black can take back the queen, but that's really not that's not the goal that black is after here. Traxler wants to mate the enemy king. So here Traxler actually plays bishop to d3, a beautiful discovered check from the rook, but really plays this. There's no need. You can take the queen, and the attack still works. But I guess Traxler is trying to play with style, hanging a bishop here, and stopping one move short of the queen. So kind of a cool move. Maybe just saving energy and not moving the bishop another square, but a cool looking move for sure. So credit to Traxler for that. So anyways, the king is in check, and again, only 1 square for the king to move. All of these squares are taken away by black's pieces. So the king has to move to b4, but now you get this knight to a6 check, and again, these bishops are just totally wreaking havoc. They're taking away all these squares. The knight is checking the king. The king is now forced to the a file, where it's going to be more discovered checks. We get king to a4, knight to b4, another discovered check, opening up the rook on the king. King takes the knight, and now a beautiful finishing touch, c5, and this, of course, is checkmate. So just an awesome finishing position. You have the bishop slicing this way, the bishop slicing this way, protecting the pawn, and of course the rook taking away the a-file. And really a ridiculous final position. I mean, the king is on b4, which is ridiculous. These two bishops are just, totally in the zone. The rook is controlling this. And white has a knight on d8, because remember, white took the queen on d8. So just a wild, wild game. This is why I like the Traxler counterattack when it works. You get just a ton of pieces going everywhere, and you can kind of see it's if black didn't have this mating attack, this might look okay for white, because this is a powerful bishop and this is a useful knight to have. So, but Traxler calculated it and figured it would work out fine, and deservedly got a counterattack in his name. So, An awesome game. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Drop a like, drop subscribe, and we'll see you next time.